The courtroom went silent as the judge pointed his gavel toward the janitor. "You don't belong here. Get out before I have security remove you." But what the judge didn't know was that the man he was yelling at wasn't just a janitor. He was the reason the entire courthouse even existed. Every morning before sunrise, Mr. Elijah Thomas, age 67, would unlock the side door of the Jefferson County Courthouse in Mississippi, dressed in a plain blue janitor's uniform, with gentle eyes behind old glasses. He moved quietly through the halls. He swept the same marble floors he once protested to enter. He cleaned the same restrooms where, in his youth, he wasn't allowed to go. And he did it with pride, not because he was a janitor, but because he believed in preserving a place where justice was supposed to live. But not everyone saw him that way. To most court staff, Elijah was invisible. No one said good morning. No one held the elevator. No one asked for his name, until one day that silence turned into shouting from the bench itself. Judge Richard Galloway, a white man in his early 60s, was known for his temper. Though he wore the robe of authority, he often misused it, treating people with contempt, especially if they didn't match his idea of importance. On this particular morning, the courtroom was packed. A high-profile corporate lawsuit was on the docket. Lawyers, media, and spectators buzzed with energy. Just before the session started, Elijah stepped in quietly with a mop and a cart. A child had spilled juice on the marble in the aisle earlier, and he had come to clean it before someone slipped. He moved swiftly, head down, respectfully, but Judge Galloway noticed and slammed his gavel. "What are you doing in my courtroom?" he barked. Heads turned, whispers spread. Elijah paused, unsure if the judge was serious. "This is a court of law, not your cleaning closet. Get out before I have you removed." Galloway snapped again. A few people chuckled, others shifted uncomfortably. Elijah quietly nodded and began to leave. But as he turned, someone from the back stood up. Renee Daniels, a black attorney in her 40s and a civil rights advocate, had grown up hearing stories about Elijah Thomas from her grandfather. She watched the scene unfold and could barely contain herself. She walked toward the front of the courtroom and calmly said, "Your Honor, with respect, do you know who that man is?" Judge Galloway scoffed, "A janitor. Now please take your seat." Renee smiled tightly. That janitor was once known as the architect of Jefferson County. Without him, this courthouse wouldn't even exist. The room shifted again. The judge blinked. "Excuse me." Renee turned to the room and spoke loud enough for all to hear. Elijah Thomas marched for voting rights in Selma. He was jailed 5 times in the 60s for protesting segregation. He helped design and draft the blueprint for this very courthouse when no black architects were being hired in the South. But the county used his design and gave him no credit. People murmured. Even the bailiff looked stunned. Renee continued. "He holds 2 degrees in civil engineering. He was once set to become a city planner until he was blackballed after speaking out against a racist developer. So he took this janitor job, not because he had to, but because he wanted to make sure this place stayed clean enough for justice to exist." The courtroom was now completely silent. The judge's face drained of color. Elijah stood at the exit, still holding his mop. For the first time in Judge Galloway's long career, he had nothing to say. Renee walked over to Elijah and placed her hand gently on his shoulder. "I grew up seeing you walk these halls, Mr. Thomas," she said. "You inspired me to become a lawyer. You taught me that every floor mopped, every hallway lit, mattered. Someone in the gallery began clapping, then another. Then the whole courtroom rose in a standing ovation. Elijah, overwhelmed, lowered his head. Judge Galloway cleared his throat. "Mr. Thomas," he began stiffly, I wasn't aware. I apologize for my tone." Elijah looked up, calm, measured, but not bitter. "You don't need to know who I am to treat me with respect, sir," he said softly. "That should come standard." The case resumed, but the tone of the room had changed. Even the attorneys spoke with more restraint. The energy shifted from arrogance to reflection. That afternoon, a local reporter wrote a piece titled, "The Janitor Who Built the Courthouse." Within days, it went viral. Elijah Thomas was invited to speak at universities, civil rights panels, and architectural conferences. The state honored him with a Lifetime Achievement Award for community service and design, finally giving him credit for his blueprint contributions to the Jefferson Courthouse. As for Judge Galloway, he issued a public apology and quietly took a leave of absence. Renee Daniels went on to mentor dozens of black law students, often sharing Elijah's story as the reason she believed in justice that starts from the ground up. A few weeks later, a bronze plaque was installed inside the Jefferson Courthouse lobby. It read, "In honor of Elijah Thomas, the man who cleaned the halls of justice and once drew them to Ewan." Asked how he felt, Elijah simply said, "Titles fade, but your impact, that stays." What are your thoughts on this story? Comment and subscribe. Lifelines.